These are the new metal releases for April 17th, 2026. Last weekend was a massive week for new metal releases. A lot of big names, a lot of familiar faces, and honestly, would have been tough for any weekend to match that energy. But this week still has plenty to offer, and there's definitely some albums and EPs here that are worth your time. I've got 10 releases covered today, so let's not waste any time. These are going to be short reviews, no particular order. I'll give each one a score out of 10 at the end. Let's get into it. First up, we have Rise of Kronos from Germany with the new album, Slaves of Time. I've listened to this band before, and what I always appreciate about them is that they have their own identity within the death metal space. They're not doing what everyone else is doing, and this album continues that tradition. The record opens with an intro track called Heresy, which sets the tone before launching into the first main track, Conceptions of Humanity. Right at the gate, the thing is fast and absolutely aggressive. We're talking blast beats, tremolo pick guitar riffs, and vocals that are about as low and guttural as it gets. This is no nonsense, in your face, death metal from the jump. What makes this band interesting is that they don't just stay in one lane the entire time. There are moments when the music opens up and gets more atmospheric, and the title track, Slaves of Time, is a great example of that. They pull back the pace a little bit, but the music is still absolutely crushing. It just hits differently. And you have tracks like Custodians of Reality, where you start to hear a little bit of a thrash metal influence creeping in with those chugging rhythms. And Into the Ashes has some guitar riffs that genuinely reminded me of Slayer, paired with some intense driving double bass drumming. Overall, this is a really solid death metal album, modern production, brutal and aggressive at its core, but with enough melodic texture and variety to keep you engaged from start to finish. I'm giving this one an 8 out of 10. Next up is Godsnake out of Hamburg with their third full-length album, Inhale the Noise. And honestly, first thing that popped into my head when I hit play was that the band sounds like modern Metallica. Now, before anyone comes for me in the comments, it's not a bad thing. It's melodic thrash metal that's a little more stripped down and accessible, and the vocalist even has shades of James Hetfield in his delivery. He's not copying him by any means, but the influence is definitely there. The opening track, Scream for a Bullet, is a hard-driving thrasher with big guitar riffs and chugging rhythms, and is structured like a proper rock and metal song. We're talking pre-chorus, chorus, the whole deal. Then there's Lost and Forgotten, has more of a modern metal feel with some Death Magnetic era Metallica vibes going on, which I was very much here for. And they also know how to slow things down when the moment calls for it. Enemy of Great is about 6 minutes long, opens up an extended melodic guitar section, real quality lead work, before transitioning into heavier metal riffs, then settling into a softer verse. It follows that classic power ballad format that a lot of metal bands have used over the years, and they pull it off very well. If you want something a little more raw and straightforward, Place to Call Home scratches that traditional heavy metal itch nicely. It's a cool band. If you don't mind your thrash metal with a more radio-friendly edge, give it a shot. I'm going 8 out of 10 for this one as well. Now this one is my dark horse pick of the week. The band is called it's spelled ORDH. I'm not sure how to pronounce it. But it's a new project featuring former members of Barishi, and their debut album, Blind in Abysmal Realms, is something special. My first impression was early Opeth. Like I think the first 3 albums, that same dense, complex death metal atmosphere with real craft behind it. But as the album unfolds, you start hearing the influence of death, specifically the Human era, in the intricacy of the guitar work. Vocals are harsh, deep, and guttural. The songs themselves are massive. We're talking 5 tracks ranging from 6 to 12 minutes with a total runtime of around 43 minutes. The opening track, Apis Bull, is immediately heavy and unpredictable. It shifts tempos, moves between slow and crushing passages, and then accelerates into blast beat territory before pulling back again. But then Moonverd takes things even further. It builds slowly from the start, double bass drumming, layers of guitars stacking on top of each other, and there's this enormous and menacing quality to it, something like a giant slowly rising. As the track progresses, it gets highly technical, but it never loses that overwhelming, immersive atmosphere. And threaded through the album are these trippy melodic moments that give it a slightly psychedelic edge. I honestly need to do a dedicated full review of this album, but there's a lot going on here. It's probably the strongest album I'm covering today, and I'm giving it a 9 out of 10. So keep your eye on ORDH. Alright, something completely different. Hardline formed back in 1991 and originally features some heavy hitters, Neil Sean and Dean Castronovo, from Journey, to name a couple, and the name of the album is Shout, if I forgot to say it. The lineup has changed over time and over years, but the name I recognize in the current roster is Alessandro Del Vecchio. He's incredibly active in the AOR world, and this band has been releasing albums on and off since 1992, and Shout is the latest chapter. The sound here is melodic hard rock and AOR, and there are big choruses, melodic guitar work, keyboards, and an unmistakably 80s character. Tracks like It Owns You showcase a genuinely nice melodic lead guitar playing with a bluesy feel, and When You Came Into My Life is a classic 80s style power ballad complete with big vocals and piano, the kind of song that would have fit right in on MTV in like the 1980s. On the harder end of the spectrum, Rise Above No Fear brings back that classic hair metal energy, and this one is one of the stronger, more driven moments on the record. If you're a fan of melodic hard rock and AOR and hair metal, it's a solid listen, a well-crafted music in a style that doesn't get nearly enough attention these days. For me personally, it lands as a decent melodic rock album, so I'm giving it 7.5 out of 10. Next is Skindred with You Got This. So Skindred is a Welsh band that's been around for a long time, and I'll be honest, even though I was deep into the nu metal scene back in the late 90s, the early 2000s, this band somehow always flew under my radar. You Got This is their 9th studio album, and it's a pretty wild ride. The record is 10 tracks and clocks in at just 33 minutes, so it moves fast. The sound is this unique blend of heavy metal, reggae, and hip-hop, and they actually call it raga metal. And that's exactly as interesting and chaotic as that description implies. The opening title track, You Got This, reminded me of 2000 pop music with a bit more muscle behind it, almost like the Black Eyed Peas doing a heavier record. Then Can I Get Up? That's the name of the song, Can I Get Up? It sounds like came straight out of the 90s, very cheesy, but undeniably catchy. This is the sound, is one of the heavier moments on the album. It has that authentic 90s nu metal energy, and then you get something like Broke, which goes full pop punk reggae, something like 311, and then Glass. That's just more straight up modern reggae. Now look, the album's over the top. There's no getting around that. But I'll say this, I didn't love it on the first listen, but then the second time around, I started getting into it. There's something almost of a guilty pleasure vibe about it. Music is fun, the energy is infectious, and it doesn't overstay its welcome. So I'm giving it 7.5 out of 10. Next is Victorius with World War Dinosaur. So if you thought the last album was a little cheesy, Victorius are here to raise the bar to absolutely absurd levels. World War Dinosaur is a power metal concept album about a futuristic war involving sharks, robot dinosaurs, and ninjas with lasers, and I am not joking. I actually made a quick AI-generated video clip to go with this, just to kind of describe what's going on. So let me play that really quickly. But despite the fact that this band is ridiculous, it's pretty good power metal. The band reminds me of Hammerfall, big soaring vocals, fast drums, melodic guitar riffs, and those bright anthemic keyboards. Kingdom of the Strong opens the album by introducing the Dino Kingdom. It's high energy power metal with a massive vocals and has the classic galloping momentum that the genre does so well. The title track, World War Dinosaur, has an epic cinematic feel. It fits the absurdity of the concept perfectly. Dino Race from Outer Space cranks up the speed and energy even more, and Raptor Squad Attack keeps up momentum going with one of the catchiest choruses on the record. And then there's Evil Mean Megalodon, which is about the giant shark entering the story, and this one actually goes a little darker, even throwing in some harsh death metal vocals, which is a wild choice for a power metal album about robot dinosaurs. But somehow it works. I genuinely did not expect to enjoy this as much as I did. Setting aside the completely unhinged concept, the musicianship is excellent and the songs are strong. This might be one of the best power metal albums of 2026 so far, and I say that with full sincerity, so I'm giving this 8.5 out of 10. Next is Nekrogoblikon with the Boiling Sea. So I'm going from cheesy power metal to, well, a different kind of weird. Nekrogoblikon is a band that defies easy categorization. They play something in the neighborhood of melodic death metal, but they absolutely do not take themselves seriously. They famously have a little green goblin character who appears on stage with them and in their music videos. The Boiling Sea is technically an EP. It's split between studio tracks and live material. I'll just be focusing on the studio side for this review. Show Me a Goblin kicks things off with some electronic sounds, gives way to melodic guitar riffs, and the vocals run the whole spectrum. Goblin-esque singing, clean harmonies, and death growls. It's catchy in the most unexpected way. Fiend comes with a great music video featuring stop-motion animation, pays tribute to Tool's classic Sober video, which is a fun touch. Close to the Sun has these chunky metal guitar riffs mixed with ska elements. And then Secret Elephant is a collaboration with ska punk legends Real Big Fish, blended with death metal, and somehow it holds together. Now, this isn't really my thing. I couldn't really fully get into it, but if you love bands that don't take themselves seriously and want something weird and fun with some legitimate metal chops underneath, and it's silly, but that might be what you're looking for. So for me, it's just a 7 out of 10. Next is Reeking Aura on the Promise of the Moon. So after all those fun and cheesy releases, let's get back to something completely serious and brutal. Reeking Aura is a death metal collective out of New York and New Jersey, and On the Promise of the Moon is their second album. If you want death metal with no gimmicks and no compromises, this is the one. Concrete bass and bath opens the record and immediately hits the gas speed, aggression, crushing riffs, and savage vocals. No build-up, no easing in. A forlorn and frozen vapor keeps the intensity while letting some melodic death metal elements creep in, and I heard a few moments that reminded me of Amon Amarth in there. Gorge, To Be on Grudges dials the old school death metal influence all the way up with some genuinely nasty violent guitar work in the best possible sense. Then, Manure Like Magma, which is a great name for a death metal track, slows things into Death Doom territory before eventually picking the tempo back up. There's also a track in the middle called Lunar Rumination that functions as a breather of sorts. Built around dark synths and atmosphere, it's a smart structural choice that keeps the album from feeling like a wall of noise, and after it ends, the record delivers 4 more tracks of relentless, quality death metal. This is exactly what it advertises itself as, straightforward, high-quality death metal that delivers the goods. I'm giving this one 8 out of 10. Next is Wage War, It Calls Me By Name. Wage War are a Florida metalcore band, and It Calls Me By Name is a 5-track EP rooted in the imagery of their home state. The concept here is drawn from the aggression and raw power of nature, the swamp, the heat, the untamed energy of the environment, and that influence comes through in the music. Song of the Swamp opens with heavy, crushing metalcore, pounding guitar riffs, and hardcore style vocals that mean business. 4x4 moves in a more modern metalcore direction with some electronic elements woven in, but still hits hard. Then Blindfold is a genuine left turn. It's an electronic pop track with all clean vocals, closer in feel to something like Sleep Token. It's not a bad song at all, it just exists in a different space from the rest of the EP. Karma comes back with that electronic metalcore sound and some serious, heavy sections, balanced in clean and aggressive vocals as well. And the closer, Purify, is straightforward, hard-hitting metalcore that ends the EP on an absolutely brutal breakdown. Solid metalcore EP overall. It's a bit short and Blindfold might catch some listeners off guard, but the heavy material here is strong. I'm giving it 8 out of 10. My last album is the Fals, Where Cold Steel Gleams. So they are a German band with their second studio album. This one blends black metal, speed metal, and traditional heavy metal together with lyrical themes centered on dark rituals and sorcery. So the atmosphere is exactly what you'd want. What immediately struck me is how unique they sound. Incursions of planes and citadels rise as guitar riffs that in one moment remind me of classic Iron Maiden, and next they shift to something closer to old school Darkthrone. That contrast works surprisingly well and gives the band a real identity. Vigilance Renewed leans more into black and speed metal before transitioning into straight traditional black metal. Iron Chains, Slaying the Apostles of Zybertar, brings that first wave black metal influence to the forefront, raw and atmospheric in the right way. The title track, Where Cold Steel Gleams, makes it slower, heavy, chugging with that old school black metal character, and Great Beast of Zargol has a heavier metal quality and still maintains that black metal DNA throughout. The band doesn't sound like every other black metal release that comes out every other week, and there are a lot of those. I really enjoyed this one. I'm giving this album 8.5 out of 10. And that's a wrap on new metal releases for April 17, 2026. 10 albums, a lot of variety. Brutal death metal, atmospheric prog, power metal with robot dinosaurs, reggae metal crossovers. Something for everyone this week. Make sure to check out last week's episode if you haven't already. It was a big one. If you enjoyed this video, hit the like button. It helps with the algorithm, and subscribe if you haven't already. I do rock and metal reviews, rankings, and more, and thanks for watching. See you in the next one.